Welcome to this latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do over the digital airways of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. This is a special edition because I've got a special guest in studio. Now, you have seen her before. You've heard her come at me before. You see me stand down because, you know, I mean, when I'm getting checked, I have to be careful about these things. I got to watch my verbiage, my body language, my demeanor, everything. But before I even introduce you to who this person is, that is my next guest right here sitting next to me in studio, let me remind y'all of who she is by showing y'all her last appearance right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Take a look at this, please. Like you can disagree with it, but you're acting like, oh my Lord, if they were to decide not to support Biden and they wanted a Kamala Harris, or they wanted a Newsom, or they wanted Wes Moore out of Maryland, who, by the way, I think would be an incredible candidate. If they wanted somebody like that, it's like you're throwing a party under the bus.
What I'm acting like is we got to stay the course and try to stay united. And all of these other conversations are distractions. I say that, okay, and I say it unequivocally. They are distractions because we got work to do, and the work is not trying to decide who is going to replace Joe Biden.
Okay, well, I unequivocally disagree with you there, Areva, and you and I will be talking about this moving forward. I'm not giving into this opinion, Areva. I'm not giving into it. And that's right, I didn't give in. And lo and behold, this weekend, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, has decided to step aside. In comes Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, who's received every endorsement under the sun with the exception of the Obamas, which is something we'll get into in a second now. The one and only Areva Martin. Welcome to the show, civil rights attorney, also a Democratic delegate based out of California. Let's not forget that, legal affairs analyst extraordinaire. Good to see you again.
My pleasure.
How are you? I tried to tell you, Areva. I tried to tell you it needed to happen. How do you feel now that it actually has happened, that Kamala Harris is going to be the nominee for the presidency of the United States?
I feel like it was all divine order, and I was trying to tell you what needed to happen was going to happen.
Really? That's not how I recall. That's not how I recall.
That's because you can't interpret what I'm saying to you.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I was trying to tell you whatever needed to happen. And remember I told you that if they stepped over Kamala Harris, we would blow the party up. Remember that?
That was almost a year ago, and I completely agreed with that.
No, that wasn't a year ago.
I completely agree with that. That wasn't your last appearance, Areva.
Pull up the tape. I told you that.
You did tell me that.
That went viral because everybody else agreed with that, and now you see what's happening?
No, I didn't disagree with it. I was simply saying your last appearance, you were getting on everybody who was calling for the president to step aside
because it wasn't time, Stephen A. Smith. It wasn't time. Look at the strategy. Look at what Joe Biden did. Donald Trump went to the RNC convention. He built a whole campaign around being the younger guy and getting rid of the older guy. They got bumper stickers that say F Biden. And look what we did. We pulled a switcheroo on them. They built their whole strategy around that, and guess what? It ain't the old guy. It's the young, articulate, smart, brilliant, fabulous Kamala Harris. Now they got to go and rework their whole strategy. We out-strategize them. This ain't chess. This ain't checkers. This is chess that the Democrats are playing.
Okay, we can move on from this in a second, but I must ask. It wasn't you. I mean, I know that I listened pretty well. Was it not you who specifically said it is entirely too late? There is no way you got to have delegates in every state. There is no way that at this particular juncture you have enough time to have someone different than Joe Biden. That wasn't you?
That was me, and it was all part of the strategy, dude. It wasn't time to call for Joe Biden to step aside. I am a true blue, 10 toes down Democrat.
So so in other words, you was talking to me, you was just strategizing. You knew this was going to happen all along. You just wanted to say this to me.
I don't want to put my insider creds on you. Just say that it was strategy, okay? Just trust me.
Okay.
Trust that I know what I'm talking about.
How worried were you when the former president got shot and you saw the country rallying around him from the standpoint of him nearly being assassinated, the blood trickling down his face, the Secret Service surrounding him, the American flag in the background? I thought that was toast for Joe Biden and the Democratic Party for this election when I saw that photo. What were you feeling like at that moment?
I abhor violence.
Okay.
I definitely don't want to see anyone shot, whether you're the president or you are the kid in the neighborhood.
Okay.
But I had no doubts that that would not, I wasn't concerned that that was going to change the trajectory of the election. In fact, I was in Las Vegas at a spa, and women said, "It's an ear, he ain't dead, please don't ruin my spa day."
Oh my goodness.
So I know there was some part of the country that was very, very concerned, but there was also parts of the country that said, look, what we've been talking about is gun violence and the need for sensible gun laws, and now the very person that's been blocking that has been shot by someone using the same kind of gun that we've seen used in school shootings, we've seen in mall shootings, we've seen in grocery store shootings. So I thought it was going to be an opportunity for the Democrats to talk about why we need to be serious about sensible gun control laws. So I didn't see it as now Donald Trump is going to get the sympathy vote. I saw it as now Democrats are going to see the need to push even harder for the House, for the Senate, so that we can do something to get guns like that off the street. So don't want to use anyone's tragedy, but I did see it as an opportunity to talk about an issue that's very important.
Areva Martin, I got to ask you this question because I'm not going to say too much about the president other than this. His years of service, 36 years in the Senate, 8 years as a vice president, 4 years in the White House as our commander-in-chief. That's 48 years of service to this country. And to me, I was getting pretty annoyed at everybody trying to act as if he was being disrespected because we were calling for his exit. There's nothing wrong with looking at somebody and saying, we really, really appreciate all that you've done. It's time for somebody else. That person now appears to be Kamala Harris. By all accounts, Chuck Schumer endorsed her today. Nancy Pelosi endorsed her recently. We know that, and along with practically everybody else, the Clintons, etc. The Obamas have been conspicuously quiet. Is that a cause for concern in your mind?
Well, let me address what you first said.
Sure.
I can agree that there becomes a time when a leader needs to pass the baton, pass the torch.
Okay.
And if that was the case with Joe Biden, and a lot of people felt that it was, a lot of people felt that it was not, though. Don't forget 14 million people voted in the primaries for Joe Biden.
Right.
I think what made many of us upset, and I'm one of them, was not so much those people that did what you just did, talked about the record and then talked about the need to move on. That's very different than what we saw from some of the donor class, some of the party elites, those people who were holding the party hostage, saying, if this man doesn't step aside, we're not going to give another dime. And I felt that was incredibly not only disrespectful to Joe Biden, but hurtful to the people that live in neighborhoods that don't have a yacht, don't have a plane to get in, can't go anywhere when Donald Trump wins the presidency. And now you're tying up those resources that Democrats needed, not just for the presidential election. We're talking about the House races. We're talking about the Senate races. So you're going to hold the whole country hostage because you don't get your way? That's what petulant children do. That's not what responsible, mature donors should do. And we don't want a party where the billionaire class tells us what to do, the regular voting people, because now we are no better than the Republicans.
That's fair, but if they're trying to get to the same finish line that you're trying to get to, if they're trying to ensure that the Democratic Party keeps Donald Trump out of office, and they saw that debate on June 27th, and they saw the slippage in Joe Biden, and that was the precipice, or that was the motivation for their ultra concern. Isn't that to be appreciated?
No, not at all. Because seeing an issue and acting on that issue and acting in a way that can harm millions of everyday people, very different to me. What we heard a lot of them say is we're not going to fund the presidential election, but we're going to fund those down ballot races. And when you talk to fundraisers, they'll tell you that wasn't happening. Many of these people threw in the towel. They were ready to run and give up the race. And that's not what we do. As black women, as Democrats, we stand and we fight. So we had a crisis, a mini crisis in our party. But the way to solve that crisis is not to withdraw the resources that are needed for those people who are knocking doors and making calls. We stand in and we fight. And that's why I'm super excited about Kamala Harris, and I hope she was taking names and numbers. And I venture to say, you know, she's probably going to help deal with those people that were holding our party hostage, because that is not the way to treat those people who've been out there working day in and day out. And so there are a lot of lessons. You know, after you have a crisis like that, we need to do an autopsy, right? We need to go look and say what happened. Did we wait too long? You know, did we rely too heavily? You saw the money that's been raised by grassroots people.
Nearly 250 million and more in less
from the
in about 36
class.
hours. In about 36 hours.
And that's not the billionaire class. So for me, it's always about the power of the people. And the people, when the people speak, that's what the Democratic Party should be listening to. And they are listening right now to the people.
Now, before I get any further into our vice president, who's now going is now going to be the nominee for the presidency of the United States, representing the Democratic Party, talk to me about your relationship with her. How well does Areva Martin know Kamala Harris? How far back do y'all go? Let's make sure we give our audience perspective on the knowledge that you have of our vice president.
Yeah, we go back a long way. We are family friends. We've known each other since college, since about 18 years old. We didn't go to the same college. She, as everybody knows, she went to Howard. She's very proud, a graduate of Howard University. I went to the University of Chicago. So at different colleges, but we met as we were both in college, and we have been family friends since then. I was talking to someone this morning about why her, you know, why support her? And she was talking about donors in particular. I said, well, look, for me, when anyone gets ready to run for office, first thing they do is call their friends and their family and say, hey, will you support me? Will you write that first check? Will you knock on those first doors for me? So I have been in it with her, you know, from the beginning in terms of supporting her and being there for her. So, but I don't profess that. Someone asked me, what job was I going to get in the White House? I said, I'm not that kind of friend. I ain't trying to borrow no money from you. I ain't trying to trade on favors. I just want to be as supportive and helpful, not only to her, but the entire party. So that's where I stand. I don't make a big deal out of that relationship other than people who know it and they ask me about it. I think a lot of people have relationships with elected officials, and hopefully they respect what the job is that person has to do. They can't be the president, the vice president, the congressperson for one person, for their friends, for their personal relationships. They have a job to do for, you know, everyone that gets them into those offices that votes for them. And that's what I love about her.
Why should folks feel confident about Kamala Harris in this upcoming election? The debates that will predictably precede the election and what have you. Why should anybody feel confident about her, considering what happened when she ran for president against the Joe Biden and others 4 years ago, and how she performed at that particular moment in time, which was not very good?
We are in a different moment, first of all. She's a different person. She's been tested on the national stage in a way that she had not been when she ran for president in 2020. I was a part of her finance team, a part of her inner circle for that election, or for that campaign that she ran. Very different. She's a different candidate. We are in a different time. At that time, she was in a primary, very crowded primary with a lot of talented elected officials, many who've been in national politics as senators a lot longer than she had been. Okay. So that's first and foremost. And then look at what she has done, how she has evolved, the world leaders that she has met with, the rooms that she has sat in, and she's had the best mentor anyone can have. If you're the vice president, that means you've been in all of those critical meetings with the president. So she's had that kind of training that no one else that would be considered for the job.
But you have an abundance of people, Areva, who believe that she didn't do much because she was muzzled and basically rendered damn near helpless by the administration.
Stephen, that is absolutely categorically false. She didn't do much. She has been leading the charge on reproductive justice. She has attended over 100 reproductive justice, reproductive rights events. She's the first vice president ever to visit an abortion clinic. She has been the most outspoken elected official on that issue. She has been next to Joe Biden on issues of student loan debt relief, $16 billion to HBCUs. Now you think that somebody other than Kamala Harris, a graduate of Howard University, AKA, is responsible for the largest amount ever dedicated to HBCUs. Are you going to tell me that somebody else?
I'm not questioning it.
But who did that? These people that say she didn't do anything, who did that? Who did making drug prices available, making insulin, $35 cap on insulin? You think Joe Biden alone did that? These are things that impact our community. Kamala Harris has been a partner with him on all of that. Right now, if you go to the hospital, not you because you're rich, but the average person goes to the hospital, can't pay their bills. A credit agency now gets that, right? Starts blowing your phone up. You can't pay it. They can ding your credit. So that means you maybe can't rent an apartment. You can't get a car loan. You can't get a business loan. So our vice president, working with our president now, has made it impossible for those kind of hospital medical bills to impact your credit score.
Well, then if that was the case, what was the hesitancy of her being in this position? Because even when Joe Biden announced that he was endorsing her and what have you, there was still some initial resistance. That's number one. Number two.
From who?
Excuse me, you had other Democrats that didn't jump on board. You had donors that didn't jump on board. That's true. I'm not making that up.
She made the announcement Sunday.
I'm just saying, we were worried about this, and then you had other folks talking about this should be an open convention, and you still haven't heard from Barack Obama and Michelle Obama about her.
All due respect to Barack and Michelle Obama, what I believe is happening, which is rightfully their position to take. Barack is a senior statesman. He doesn't want to put his thumb on the scale and tip the scale. He wants the people to speak. You think Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are not going to come out for Kamala Harris?
I think they will eventually. I don't think they're going to have any choice if everybody and their grandmother already came out to support her.
That's the power of the people. That's what I'm talking about.
But I'm just saying, one could argue why should it take that? She is the vice president of the United States.
But why is it relevant? Why is it relevant?
Because I don't know there's a Democrat alive that matters more than Barack Obama. How about that argument?
I would beg to differ. When you raise $250 million in 36 hours, I would say a whole lot of people matter more than Barack Obama. When you got every Democratic governor, every Democratic governor, you got pretty much every Democratic senator, the House of Representatives, you got Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, you got Nancy Pelosi,
which is why it should be easier for him to come out.
But it doesn't matter. When you have the kind of groundswell, I submit to you that the enthusiasm we saw in 2007 around Barack Obama, that's the kind of enthusiasm we're seeing around Kamala Harris. I had a friend tell me they worked the polls for Barack. People came in an ambulance to vote, got out of the ambulance off a gurney. That's how important it was to be a part of that historic election. That's what we're experiencing now. 40,000 women crash Zoom on Sunday night.
I personally don't care the reasons why, but when Joe Biden got over 81 million votes in 2020, people were saying it wasn't really for him, it was against Trump. So you can make a legitimate argument that right now, excuse me, you're going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. You certainly don't want Trump in office. That's the motivation behind all of this. And as far as I'm concerned, to me,
oh, no, Stephen.
If you're Kamala Harris, listen, I love her chances. I got to admit to you, because let me tell you something right now. Roe v. Wade, I mean, how that was overturned, you're Kamala Harris and taking the positions like you just articulated. You should have an abundance of women supporting Kamala Harris. No question about it. Black folks definitely going to support Kamala Harris. We know this much. So I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at this as a huge fight, because to me, she has a legitimate chance if she goes after him and doesn't hesitate in doing so.
But wait a minute, you just said that you don't know if the enthusiasm about her is because of her or because
I don't care.
But that's the whole point. A win is a win.
A win is a win.
A win is a win. And she is, by all indication, she has stolen all of the momentum from the Republican Party. You got Black women crashing Zoom on Sunday. Black men crashing StreamYard on Monday. I got a message today that Asian American women are about to do the same call that Black women did. That Latina women are organizing to do that same call. 30,000 people that have never volunteered for a presidential campaign have volunteered to work on this campaign. That money we talked about, that 80 million, 100 million, keeps growing. 60% of those people had never, ever donated to the 2024 presidential election. And about 40% of those people said, hit my bank account every month. So I don't think that is an anti-Trump vote. That is clearly a pro-Kamala Harris history vote, new era, new generation, new opportunity to move this country forward in a way that we haven't seen in a long time.
So you're not concerned about those white women out there who may be pro-life? There's millions of them.
There are more of us. There are more of us. If we do our job, this has always been and continues to be about the numbers, right? You're a numbers man.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation.
Yes, we did.
The math is mathing in this case. If we turn out enough voters, if we knock on enough doors, which is why, again, I go back to those petulant donors, if they free up that money, if people keep giving that grassroots money, we will knock on enough doors and we will turn out voters, disenchanted voters. You know who I think we're also going to win with? Who've been pretty critical of Kamala Harris.
Who?
Black men.
I was getting there. I was going there next.
We're going for them, and I think we're going to get them.
Okay, so remind our audience. I'm not going to put the words, Areva. I'm going to let you put the words. Why would black men be reluctant to support Kamala Harris? Go. I'll let you explain.
They were uninformed.
Don't give me that.
They were uninformed.
Fine. But tell me what they were uninformed about first.
They were uninformed about her record as a prosecutor, and this is what they were uninformed about.
Okay.
I'm a lawyer, civil rights lawyer.
That's right.
Stand on the shoulders of some of the greatest civil rights leaders
and
of
based
our
out of the
era.
state of California, which is where she was a district attorney in San Francisco and the attorney general in the state.
But my point is, people were mad calling her a cop and a prosecutor. Do you know how many people died so that we could integrate the ranks of prosecuting attorneys?
Totally
Do you know we had to fight so that black people could be elected as prosecuting attorneys?
Right.
Our criminal justice system is screwed up.
Yes,
it
it is.
disproportionately disadvantages people of color. No doubt about that, hands down.
And what did she do to help that?
Well, do you think it's going to be better or worse if you don't have black prosecutors like Kamala Harris? What she did to make it better was representation. Behind her are so many black prosecutors now who said, I wanted to be a prosecutor because I watched her, and I want to reform our criminal justice system. So she single-handedly has gone around the country helping other black women and black men and people of color become prosecutors.
But hold on, Areva.
No, that's important. Don't minimize that.
I'm not minimizing it, nor am I disputing it. I'm simply pointing to the perspective, albeit might be an oblivious perspective on the part of those who are critical of her about this. But nevertheless, there are voters out there who may not be as knowledgeable, or who definitely are not as knowledgeable as you, who believe that she assisted in incarcerating a disproportionate amount of black men for non-violent offenses.
And
now, that might not be accurate. Roland Martin came on there and said that that's not true.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. That's the distortion of her record. That is the reading of a Republican talking point and a repetition of that talking point.
Well, these were Democratic opponents that were saying this about her too during the primaries, 4 years ago.
Come on,
they were saying that. Tulsi Gabbard, for example.
When you in a primary, what do?
I understand that.
You do op research and you try to take your opponent down. Kamala Harris took a swipe at Joe Biden on the debate
yes, she
stage.
Did. A good one too.
A damn good one. It ended up his vice president. So you can't point to that as evidence of anything that's factual. Tulsi Gabbard, she's the last person you want to quote. But anyhow.
I'm just saying she was running for, she was a presidential candidate.
I try not to make disparaging remarks about women, so I'm just going to say that's the last person you want to quote.
Okay.
Kamala Harris wrote a book called being smarter on crime.
Okay.
They never talk about all of the diversion programs. Diversion, meaning you got a low-level offense, rather than go to jail, you go do some community service, you get into rehab, you do some things other than jail. She was the champion of diversion programs when she was working as a prosecuting attorney. Mm-hmm. You know what they don't talk about either?
What?
This woman became the first black woman ever to win the seat of Attorney General in the state of California. Do you know how hard it is to win an election statewide in a state as huge as California? Almost impossible. And she
wait a minute. Nobody's questioned her intellect. Nobody's questioned her accomplishments. Nobody questioned her intelligence. We know that she's the real deal in that regard. But you know what she did as Attorney General? Nobody's questioning that.
But let me tell you what she did as Attorney General.
Right.
All those people that say she put black people in jail, and some black people went to jail who committed crimes.
Well, by the way, deserve it. I ain't got no problem with that.
That's a prosecutor's job.
If you do the crime, you got to do the time. I ain't got no problems with that.
That's why it's going to be so beautiful watching her prosecute the criminal, the convict that Donald Trump is. But as Attorney General, don't talk nearly enough about this. She went after those big banks that did those prime loans, those horrible subprime loans that resulted in those big balloon payments that caused so many black and brown families to lose their homes. She went after those banks, held them accountable, got huge settlements for the state of California to make sure those families got some restitution for what they lost in that whole subprime market fiasco that we had. So there is so much positive in her record as a prosecuting attorney and as Attorney General that doesn't get highlighted. Because you know what, Stephen? You know this. If it bleeds, it leads.
That's
and
true.
What we have watched over the last 4 years is the media giving Trump billions and billions of dollars of unearned media time.
I don't blame the media for that. I'm not letting y'all do that. You know why?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you why. Let me tell you why I'm not gonna let you do that. Because even though that's true, he's compelling in a lot of people's eyes. Why the hell ain't you compelling? I'm talking about as a candidate.
Because
you know
the job of a president is not to be compelling
no.
TV.
The job of a candidate is. The job of a candidate is, Areva.
The job of the president and vice president is not to be compelling reality TV.
Excuse me.
We want you to govern the country.
No, I agree with that.
We do not want you to be a
Hold on,
reality
wait a minute.
star.
You got to crawl before you walk. And before you get into that office, you got to be somebody that's compelling enough to resonate with the constituency out there. And we got too many Democrats that aren't able to pull that off. And that's the reality. If you know you're going up against somebody that's got that kind of cachet, that got that kind of pull, that magnetizes an audience for some reason the way that Trump has on the right, you got to have somebody on the left capable of pulling that off too.
You are categorically wrong about that. When you say, first of all, we do have Democrats that have enough cachet,
I didn't say you
have
don't.
enough charisma.
I'm just saying there's nothing wrong with requiring
cause millions of voters to vote for them. So let's be clear about that.
I'm just saying it's all right to have that quality.
And what you're saying about the media, again, categorically wrong.
Okay.
The media, driven by profits, business. I don't have any problem with that. I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I'm driven by profits in a lot of the work that I do.
You're capitalist?
I work.
Are you a capitalist?
And I demand to get paid for what I do.
How about that? That makes you a capitalist?
I work to ensure that I make the lives of people better.
Okay, what's wrong with saying you're a capitalist, though? What's wrong with that?
I'm not defining myself the way you want to define me. You want to put me in a box. I'm Areva. That's it. That's all I am right now.
Okay.
My point is, Donald Trump was given billions of dollars of unearned media because he is as you just called, maybe a reality star. I don't know what
He's a reality. He's definitely
a reality TV star.
He's a reality TV star.
But our government isn't reality TV. These are real issues that impact real people. And I do hold our media to account, and I do expect better than them allowing someone to come on television and tell. Someone said he told 600 lies.
I'm not saying he should be allowed to get away with lies.
40 minutes during that debate. So the unknowing person, the person that got 2 jobs, the person that's got to work all day, they don't have time to go and fact check that. So don't you think as journalists?
No.
If I'm watching the news, the news should be news.
Without question.
It should not be reality TV.
Based on what you just said, he's told so many lies. You ain't got enough television real estate to go through all the lies.
But then maybe we take them off. Maybe we don't have them on television.
That's fine. Let me ask you this question. What about Kamala Harris? No, she wasn't the border czar, as they tried to call her, but they still point the finger at her because she's the person that Joe Biden assigned overlooked at things, and 10.5 million illegal immigrants have crossed our borders. What level of culpability do you attach to her for that? These are things that critics might ask.
Well, first of all, I take issue with you calling people illegal. Again, that's a Republican talking point.
It's not a Republican talking
point. It is. Why are you defining them as legal or illegal? They're just people. They're people coming across the border. They're people seeking asylum, looking for a better life.
I don't have a problem with that. Tell me what you
want. Do you
want
to be called illegal? That's not the meaning.
I didn't mean that.
Okay.
I apologize. So I'm asking you, what would you like me to call them that suffices? Just tell me and I'll start doing it.
Just call them immigrants. Just call them people.
No problem.
Immigrants crossing the border.
Immigrants crossing the border. Is that fine? Because I don't want to be offensive to anybody. I certainly don't have a problem. What's the deal with that?
The deal with that is, again, the information is being distorted. The fact is, Joe Biden, the number of people crossing the border is lower. It's lower under the Biden-Harris administration than it was under the Donald Trump administration, and we're doing it in a much more humane fashion. Do you remember those cages?
Yeah.
Remember those kids who were in cages? Is that what we want to go back to? Remember Donald Trump, first thing he did when he got into office is to say, deport all Muslims. People were at airports, lawyers were having to run to airports to help the deportation of people. So Donald Trump has shown what he will do in office. The difference in this election than 2015 when he was running, he has a record now. We don't have to guess about, we don't have to buy into the narrative that this billionaire businessman is going to do for the country what he did allegedly for those businesses. Now we know what he did for those businesses was to run them in the ground.
Well, first of all, bankruptcy at least 4 times. I think the number might have been 7.
But that was the narrative. That was a reality TV narrative.
And secondly, he ain't getting nobody's vote this way. But I would ask you this question: why the hell has he been leading in the polls if that's the case? All the things you just highlighted, and you didn't even bring up the 34 felony counts against him that he was found guilty of. You didn't bring up the $454 million civil suit. You didn't bring up the inordinate amount of cases, legal cases against them.
Jeopardy.
Just going on his record, you brought that up. And yet, the record plus this stuff, the man is still the GOP nominee.
I hate to break it to you, it's one word. It's called racism. What Donald Trump unleashed when he became president, he emboldened white supremacists, white nationalists, not to say that they weren't always there, but he gave them a platform. He gave the insurrectionists a platform and said, bravo.
White supremacists, insurrectionists don't equate to 74 plus million votes. I can't call everybody that votes for him that.
No, you can respect that there is a large number of people, millions of people that want to maintain the status quo, maintain white hierarchy in this country. And we can look at the evidence, all the attacks on DEI. SHRM, you know who they are? The Society for Human Resources. Johnny Taylor, black man actually, a lawyer, president of the organization, 340,000 member human resources organization. He said, for our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, we are now going to remove the word equity. Because equity is too difficult for people to understand and it's too divisive. So we can go back to the attacks on Claudine Gay, the first black female president of Harvard University. We can go back to statements made by Bill Ackerman and others that they're coming for DEI. We can look at the dismantling of affirmative action in college admissions and know that there is a concerted effort. Project 2025, need we say more? I brought that up on this show. 900-page manifesto that basically undermines the rights of just about everybody, minorities, people in the LGBTQ, women. So don't tell me that we are not seeing people voting for Donald Trump, not necessarily because I'm saying they are racist. I don't know if you're racist or not, but we do know by the actions of people that there's an effort to support white hierarchy in this country.
I'm going to come back with a big-time question based off of what you just said. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and iHeartRadio. The one and only Areva Martin is in the house, in my studio, causing all types of trouble. We'll be right back in a minute. It pays to get paid on Cash App. When you deposit your paycheck on Cash App, you can get a little extra protection with up to $50 in free overdraft coverage. Having a little extra cushion to give you peace of mind at no extra cost is a beautiful thing. There's nothing better than having peace of mind or a peaceful moment like your kids spending the weekend with their grandparents, having jumper cables in your car, knowing the other team's player is not in the starting lineup. So once again, getting paid on Cash App isn't just convenient. Cash App has got you covered. That's money. That's Cash App. Download Cash App from the App Store or Google Play Store today. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. I want to know, when you think about the tens of millions of people who support the Republican candidate for the United States of America, I've run across many of them who don't like him a little bit. Mm-hmm. They actually think he will be bad for the country. But they don't think he'll be worse than what we see on the left because of the kind of things one could argue. You just articulated this belief that, okay, if you can't see where we're coming from, you must not get it. You must be a bad person. That's how people interpret that, Areva.
That is not what I said, and that is what people say to avoid dealing with the bigger issue. Okay. And this isn't what I say. This is well-documented history, Stephen A. Smith. Mm-hmm. I'm not making this up. Read a history book. Have some of these people you run into read a history book. Look at the history of African Americans in this country, from Reconstruction to Jim Crow to the segregated South to the Civil Rights era. There are laws and policies that have been enacted in this country since we were brought here on slave ships to separate, to undermine, to marginalize, and to create benefits for non-black people and disadvantages for black people. That's not an Areva statement.
Not at all.
That is a historical fact.
That is
and
a
lot of people
historical
who
fact,
say they don't want the left, quote unquote, to be in power because we are attacking them. That is them again showing what we just have to call it white fragility. A whole lot of books about that. I didn't create that either.
No doubt.
The reality is there are systemic racism and systemic barriers in this country, in the institutions of this country, and we get real close to dealing with them. And then people retreat because they personalize it. Systemic racism isn't you or me. It's a system. It's a policy. Redlining. That's a policy that made it difficult for people who were black to get bank loans and to buy homes in certain neighborhoods. So when we talk about redlining, I'm not talking about your great-grandfather. I'm sorry. But redlining exists, and it deprived millions of black people from home ownership, and as a result, you were able to buy a house. You were able to pass that house down to your descendants. They now have generational wealth. My family couldn't buy a house. So now the wealth gap is 10 to 1. I'm not personalizing this. I'm just pointing to the facts.
And you know, it's interesting because one of the biggest things I think the Democrats need to be given credit for, and I've often said this, they were the ones, the Democratic Party were the ones who gave black folks access to capital in this country. That's not something that the Republican Party can brag about. That is something the Democratic Party can brag about, based especially off of what you just articulated. As you sit here right now, are you more confident now about the possibility of Kamala Harris winning this election than you were about Biden's chances of winning the election?
I always believed, and I continue to believe, that the Democrats were going to win this election. I believe that Joe Biden could have won this election, and I believe Kamala Harris.
Even after the debate on June 27th?
Even after the debate, because I believe sensible people were going to look at the record that I talked about and you just talked about. I believe that when people got into that ballot box, they were going to have a binary choice. They were going to have to choose between a party that wanted to continue and move this country forward or a party whose only platform is retribution and revenge. That's what Donald Trump says. I am going after my political enemies. I am running for office. Some people, you know, the belief is there, and I think there's evidence to support it, to stay out of jail. If I'm president, I can make those criminal cases that you've talked about go away. I can make them disappear. I can appoint more people to the federal bench. I may get another Supreme Court. I can get maybe, you know, some of the Supreme Court justices, the majority of them are over 70 years old.
That's right.
Maybe I'm going to get a couple of more appointments. And they've already ruled that he's immune from prosecution, that he can commit crimes and not be held accountable. Right. So
as long as he's
Project
doing it from the Oval Office.
Invalidate the Constitution.
Okay.
So maybe change it, and he could have stayed another term.
What level of culpability should the Democratic Party embrace when it comes to skepticism about the left in terms of what it articulates about the right? And I remember I brought this up recently. I said, you know something? She's got my vote. He's got my vote. I was going to vote for Biden no matter what because I ain't voting for Trump. But I did say this. If you didn't say the same thing about H.W. Bush, if you didn't say the same thing about W. Bush, if you weren't saying the same thing about Mitt Romney when he was running against Barack Obama, if you didn't say the same thing about Trump in 2016, maybe some of the things that you say about Trump now wouldn't fall on deaf ears. The same thing, a threat to democracy, our nation is in trouble, etc. These are the kind of things that we hear every 4 years.
But Stephen, there is a fundamental difference in a Trump candidacy and a Mitt Romney.
I agree.
John McCain, think about John McCain.
That's right.
When the birther issue came up.
And he stopped them. He stopped them in their tracks when they tried to do that with Obama. He shut it down.
Shut it down. There was a civility in our politics, pre-Donald Trump, that existed.
But I'm saying that civility was there, but it didn't stop Democrats from saying the same thing then that they're saying now.
We did not say that Mitt Romney was a threat to our democracy.
We
attacked the Republican policies. We may have attacked him on his policy around tax breaks, on how he's going to handle the economy. I don't remember anyone saying that
I do, but it wasn't on television. It was just people I ran into.
Well, you're older than me, so I don't remember anybody saying that somebody was going to change the Constitution and stay in office longer, or that they were going to go after Mitt Romney. Did he threaten to jail his political opponents?
Never.
I don't remember Bush saying that.
Okay.
John McCain saying that. So this is a fundamentally different Republican Party under Donald Trump. This isn't the Reagan Republican Party.
I don't even consider it the Republican Party right now.
I consider
it the Trump Party.
It's the MAGA Party.
It's about him. It's not about the party.
What do you think about J.D. Vance? We haven't talked about him.
I don't think much of him, to be quite honest with you.
Do you think Trump would have chosen someone else had he had an insight on our strategy?
I haven't thought about that, in all honesty. I didn't think about that. I mean, the first time I thought about it is now that you just brought it up. He might have had some insight on the strategy, and that's why. But guess what? Picking J.D. Vance as your vice president doesn't offset Kamala Harris as the candidate to go up against Trump. J.D. can't help Trump versus Kamala Harris.
No.
Trump has to do that himself.
No, he can't do that.
Well,
he might have gotten some. I submit there probably would have been a different candidate other than J.D. Vance, because you got extreme Trump. You know, J.D. Vance is more extreme than Donald Trump.
Yes, I do.
So I think that Trump probably, he's unpredictable. So I do not profess to know what he thinks, but there's a possibility, right, that there may have been a different pick for VP had he known.
You brought up the vice presidential candidate on the Republican side, the GOP side. Let me ask you this question. With Kamala Harris now clearly running for the presidency as the Democratic nominee, people have said, A, she can't pick another black because you can't have two blacks on the ticket. B, she can't pick a woman because you can't have two women on the ticket. Some have even speculated that her picking a Jewish individual would be problematic because of the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict, basically dating back to October 7th. Not that it started there, but what happened October 7th, and all the brouhaha that has come from that. She can't go that route either. Where do you stand on that when it comes to a potential vice presidential nominee for Kamala Harris?
First of all, I've asked every person that I know to stop saying who we can't elect as president of this country, because we have elected a black man and we are about to elect a black and Southeast Asian woman. And so I am not going to buy into or give any breath or any energy to this notion that we can't have two women do anything, because I just think that's negative. It doesn't help the situation, and we have evidence to prove something to the contrary. We're on the precipice of a historic election, and I say all of the way that we thought about all of those patriarchal values that are so prevalent in this country, time out. I think the issue is about strategic, being strategic about the choice. And the choice, to my thinking, is someone from one of those battleground
swing states.
And if
North
that person
Carolina,
is black, they're black. If
right.
that person is a woman, they're a woman. The key is, can you help us in the battleground states where we need those electoral votes?
Well, a battleground state is Whitmer in Michigan. A battleground state is Cooper in North Carolina. A battleground state is Shapiro in the state of Pennsylvania.
Arizona.
Arizona, obviously. What is that?
Georgia. Georgia is considered a battleground state.
Georgia, Senator Mark Kelly in Arizona.
Eric Holder is vetting. So I'm confident that Eric Holder is going to be looking at the math. And does the math? That's going to be the consideration. I don't think he's going to be looking at what the race of the person is. We're past that in this. I think we're past that.
You just finished articulating all the issues going on in this country because of race, and now you're saying we're past that?
You asked me as it related to Republicans who are supporting Donald Trump.
Okay.
That was my response in relationship to that question.
Okay.
As it relates to picking Kamala Harris, the energy right now suggests that she is going to be the president and her running mate. I do not think somebody's going to not vote for Kamala Harris if Gretchen Whitmer is on the ticket with Kamala Harris.
60% of America is still white.
And Gretchen Whitmer is white.
Okay, she's a white woman, but you talked about millions upon millions of people who want to harken back to the good old days,
but
as they call them.
But it's more of us. That's the point. It's more of us. Those people that I'm talking about, they are not the majority. And that's a part of the fear. They fear losing their majority status. Because the black and brown and the Asian American, the browning of the country makes them nervous. Young people, I think a double female ticket would energize women in this country like we've never seen before. And you know it's more women registered voters than men.
Well, I just know that you win when the women are on your side. That's just my basic philosophy. You win when the women are on your side.
And I don't think Eric Holder is going into that meeting, because Gretchen's on the short list, we're being told, saying, well, Gretchen, I'm sorry, you know, 2 women. Yeah, I don't think so.
Right.
Me too. Look at all the progress. And people bring up Hillary Clinton a lot. We haven't talked about her. That election and what happened to Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Okay, and
I think
what you're about to say about what happened to her in 2016, don't get me started with that. That was arrogance. That was arrogance. You got to campaign those last few days. You can't take days off.
there were women who did not support Hillary Clinton in 2016. And I think the reproductive justice issue, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the extreme positions by people like J.D. Vance, that even if you are raped by your uncle, by your daddy, that you are forced at 12 years old to have a baby. I think those extreme positions have caused this country to think differently about women as candidates and about women as leaders. I think the Me Too movement, the reckoning around sexual harassment, sexual assault, I think all of those things make it easier for those of us that believe in progressive values, democratic principles. I don't think Gretchen Whitmer would be a drag on the ticket. I think she would be an addition, a welcome addition to the ticket.
But you are, you know, you're an attorney. You're a legal affairs analyst. You know the law. I would ask you, what about the fact that Cooper and Kamala Harris were both attorney generals at the same time, and there's an affinity for one another because apparently they know one another, they have a relationship, et cetera, that plays a role. And knowing the law and being protective of the Constitution, what about that?
I love Roy Cooper. Everybody on that short list, to me, you could throw them all in a hat and pick one of them out because they all bring something unique to the ticket. And I think they all could be helpful to our campaign. And I hope she picks this person. So before we get into the convention, as a delegate, we've already been told we're going to do a virtual roll call vote on or before August 7th. So when she walks into those convention doors in Chicago on August 19th, she will be the nominee. So we'll just be there partying and celebrating. We'll be taking care of some business, but we won't have to worry about a contentious, convention or fighting over who is going to be our nominee. So I'm super excited about that.
Last couple of questions. Who's going to decide this election?
Women, and black women.
You think black women are going to decide?
We decide most elections, yes.
Well, first of all, let me tell you something.
On the margins.
There's no way that black women are going to vote against her. I mean, there's no way that's going to happen.
But we're going to turn out. It's not just our vote. We're going to amplify. That's what we do. We're going to bring out those disgruntled black men that you talked about. We're going to bring out our white colleagues, our friends, the excitement. You got to catch it, Stephen.
What do you mean I got to catch it? You got my vote. I mean, what are you talking about? I'm sitting on that. I'm a sports guy. I've been talking about Kamala Harris for the last 3 days.
We're not talking about your one vote.
I know what I'm doing. I'm
talking about amplifying your vote. Multiplying your vote. That's why I say black women, because we're so fired up and ready to go. It's not just our one little vote. We don't even have enough one votes.
You got to get them white women to side with you.
That's what I just said.
You think you're going to be able to pull that off? I've been on the phone. You think them black women going to be able to convey the,
I've been on the phone with them. They are fired up. We got allies. They laying in the trenches. They are ready. I can't tell you how many white friends, lawyers, friends I have who've been hitting me up, Areva, what can we do? What can we do? We're all in. They are ready.
Now you know.
They're ready.
That Trump is going to pull out all the stops to win. First of all, he ain't going to admit when he lost. But he's going to pull out all the stops.
That's why we need a lawyer in office.
He's going to pull out all the stops to win.
But
touching on your level of objectivity here, what does our vice president have to worry about going up against Trump, particularly in a debate? What is your concern when it comes to that for Kamala Harris?
I have absolutely no concerns.
Zero.
Because she's not going to let him get under her skin when he makes personal attacks, and we know he's going to make them, because
I don't know if he'll get away with that this time.
Well, he comes for anybody. That's his way of trying to reduce you to his level. And because he won't be able to compete with her intellectually, he's going to have to resort to name calling. That's what he does. He did that to Joe Biden. He name called Joe. He called Joe Biden at a rally stupid. I mean, that's what he does. That's just how low of a person he is. So, but she won't let that get under her skin. She's such a skilled debater. You know, she's used to standing up before juries, giving closing arguments, making opening statements, talking to people, presenting her case, persuading people to vote in her favor. That's what she does best. That's when she is at her best. I question, Stephen A. Smith, if Donald Trump is going to debate her. J.D. Vance.
You don't think he's going to show up for a debate?
Before Kamala Harris was the presumptive nominee, J.D. Vance said he didn't know. He's a Yale-trained lawyer, but he hasn't been practicing as a lawyer. He didn't know if he was going to debate the vice president. So if J.D. Vance was running scared, what makes you think?
Because Donald Trump can't get away with it. He can't get away with talking. First of all, he said to
Donald
Joe Biden,
Trump,
hold on, wait a minute. He said to Joe Biden, I want to debate him 5 times. Remember that? You can't go from wanting to debate the president, the incumbent, who's obviously running for re-election, daring him to debate you 5 times to bowing out and not debating the VP once. He can't get away with that. There's a lot of things Donald Trump has gotten away with. He ain't getting away with that.
I'm not going to put money on it because I don't know for sure, but I would not be surprised if we don't start seeing a campaign from the Republican Party to find some loophole, to find some excuse, to find some way.
Are you trying to say that Donald Trump is scared to debate Kamala Harris? I'm asking. I'm just saying.
He's scared.
He's scared. You trying to say scared?
He's scared.
He's scared of Kamala Harris.
Yes.
He's scared of Kamala
Harris.
Harris.
And he has good reason to be. Donald Trump cannot match Kamala Harris on the debate stage. All he can do is sit there and call her names. And then he's going to resort to calling Joe Biden names. You know what he's doing right now on social media? He's still attacking Joe Biden. He's mad at us because we outmaneuvered him.
I said this on my show just yesterday. Just the other day, I said, look, I don't want to hear about legal issues against the Democratic Party because Joe Biden decided to step away and Kamala Harris is in. Oh, we don't want to hear that. You said, don't engage in lawfare, Democratic Party. You said, hey, you just doing that because you're scared you can't beat me fair and square because you know you can't beat me. Well, now, here they are, even though you got your record against you, Kamala Harris ain't running from a debate. She ain't running from going toe-to-toe against you. She's not even talking about all your legal issues. She's talking about how she's going to beat you. She showed up yesterday and gave her speech and talked about coming right after you. So J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, don't run scared now. That was my position.
But I don't know where you're getting your facts from. You act as if Donald Trump plays by the rules that the rest of us have to play by. He doesn't play by those rules.
I'm not saying that
I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit if he did not find a reason not to participate.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that he can't get away with running and hiding from Kamala Harris. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you're saying he shouldn't be able to get away with it, but I'm saying that he does not comport himself. He does not comply with the rules that apply to you and me and every other American in this country. And I think there are people like Fox News would give him a pass.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Oh,
and
I think they would.
And let me tell you why.
Oh,
let me tell you, because here's my point. He can't get away with not confronting her because he'll look scared.
But let me tell you, okay, but he doesn't care about complying. They're already building the case that she's not a legitimate candidate because, you know what they're saying? That we have thrown out the votes of 14 million Democrats. And how can we do that? So they're doing that to build the case in case he wants to get out of the debate. They already said she's not a legitimate candidate.
I disagree with you. That's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because he has another excuse to talk about a rigged election. It's bigger than that to me. It's not about the not showing up for a debate. He wants to be able to say that's not a legitimate candidate. She shouldn't be allowed.
Two things can be true at the same time.
Okay, and those are
so
the two
you
things.
can be right, and I know I'm right. So two things can be true.
I just want to let you know before I let you get on out of here that you seem so much happier, so much more excited, so much more enthused than you did a couple of weeks ago before President Biden stepped aside. I just want to point that out, Areva Martin.
There is a filter on Zoom. If we were in that conversation a couple of weeks ago in person, you'd have seen the same bubbly, upbeat personality. You can't get all of that when you do a Zoom interview. That's why a lot of people don't like interviews on Zoom. You know you lose something in translation.
You know, Zoom interviews with yours truly is better than Zoom interviews with most. So I'm not going to completely agree with that.
I'm just going to say you can't get the full essence of this on.
So I didn't get the full essence of you. In other
of
words,
my excitement, of my democratic excitement.
So the excitement was there when you were telling people to be quiet and just calm down and stay the course.
It was there. You missed it. I don't know, Stephen. Put some glasses on or something. It was there. It was there.
It's hard to miss her even more.
It was there. It was there. No, I am going to give you this. Okay, I'm going to give you this.
Oh, please. I got to take this as a real moment because I don't get much.
There is a level of excitement that I have today, and that is because my sister, my friend, my bestie, our amazing vice president is on the precipice of becoming the first Black woman president of this country. So that does excite me. I'm going to
end this interview by giving you this. For those who doubt Kamala Harris in any way, all they need to do is watch you and they'll change their mind. That much I will say. You are something special. The one and only Areva Martin right here with Stephen A. Smith. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it as always. Thank you so much. Madam Vice President, you see this lady? You see the support you getting? It's something special. That's it for this edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show. I'll be back with y'all in a couple of days. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. Go to the polls.